She weighed 130 pounds, and her doctor had always called her weight perfect. 1/3 of her liver was fat. Her airway was closing dozens of times a night while she slept, and she had no idea. Nothing on the outside gave it away. The scale, the one number everybody watches, was the one thing hiding it. You can be slim, eat like everyone around you, pass every mirror, and still carry the exact kind of fat that quietly feeds diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. So the real question was never what you weigh, it's where your fat is. And I'll show you how to find out at home with a tape measure and the fastest ways to move it. I've spent years in emergency rooms, and one of the hardest lessons the front line teaches you is that the sickest person in the room does not always look sick. We have a phrase for the thing I'm describing today: skinny fat. It sounds like a joke. It is not. And the woman I just described, a retired school teacher in her early 60s from Sacramento, is the reason I take it seriously. Normal weight her whole life. Normal BMI. And when a routine scan for something unrelated happened to catch her abdomen, her liver was loaded with fat, and her body was quietly running hot with inflammation. So let's reframe the whole question, because the standard one is leading people wrong. The question isn't, am I overweight? The question is, where is my body storing its fat? Because there are two very different kinds, and they behave nothing alike. The fat you can pinch, the stuff just under your skin, on your arms, your hips, your thighs, is called subcutaneous fat. It's mostly along for the ride. It's padding on the seat of the car, not the problem we're worried about today. The dangerous kind is called visceral fat. It's stored deep in your abdomen, packed in and around your organs, your liver, your pancreas, your intestines. That's not padding on the seat, that's grease packed around the engine. And here's the part that flips everything. You can have very little of the pinchable kind and a dangerous amount of the deep kind at the same time. That's skinny fat. A normal number on the scale, a normal reflection in the mirror, and a serious problem on the inside. Why is the deep fat so different? Because it isn't just storage, it's active. Visceral fat behaves almost like an organ that never shuts off, and it leaks. It constantly releases inflammatory signals into your bloodstream. Picture a suitcase you've overstuffed. The zipper strains and the contents start squeezing out through the seams. That's visceral fat leaking low-grade inflammation into your whole body, day and night, for years. And there's a second reason the deep fat is so much nastier than the pinchable kind, and it's about plumbing. The fat packed around your organs drains directly into your liver through a short vein before the rest of your body ever gets a say. So it dumps a steady stream of free fatty acids and inflammatory signals straight into the liver's front door. That's a big part of why visceral fat drives insulin resistance, the state where your cells stop responding properly to insulin, which is the runway to type 2 diabetes. The fat on your hips doesn't do that. The fat around your engine does. Same person, same weight. Two completely different risks, depending on where the body decided to store it. And that quiet, constant inflammation is the thread that ties together almost everything dangerous about it. Let me show you where it leads, because this is where skinny fat stops being a punchline. Start with cancer, because the link is stronger than most people realize. There's a long study that followed thousands of women, none of them obese, all of them normal-sized, and measured their actual body fat with a precise scan rather than the scale. Over about 13 years, the women carrying more hidden body fat had roughly triple the risk of developing breast cancer, and it tracked with higher inflammation in their blood. Here's why that makes brutal sense. Cancer thrives in an inflammatory environment. If there's a tiny cluster of abnormal cells somewhere, Dropping constant inflammation around them is like pouring gasoline on the last embers of a campfire. You had almost nothing, and suddenly you have a bonfire. And it isn't only breast cancer. Excess visceral fat has been linked to higher risk of more than a dozen different cancers: colon, pancreas, kidney, and others. But stay with me, because I promised you this wasn't going to just be a wall of fear. And it isn't. The reason I'm laying out the stakes first is that the same fat that causes all this is also, genuinely, one of the most responsive things in the body. It moves. It comes off faster than the fat you can see, and I'm going to show you exactly how. First, one more place it hides, because this one gets missed constantly. Your liver. There's a condition, recently renamed to something you'll start hearing: metabolic dysfunction-associated fatty liver disease, but you can just think of it as fatty liver, where fat builds up inside the liver itself. And here's the number that should stop you. Roughly 1 in 4 American adults has some degree of it, and most of them have never been told. It usually causes no symptoms until it's advanced. My schoolteacher from Sacramento had it, at a normal weight, and she'd never have known if that scan hadn't happened by accident. The reassuring flip side, and it's a big one: early fatty liver is one of the most reversible conditions in medicine. Take the visceral fat down, and the liver fat comes down with it, often dramatically. But you have to know it's there. Then there's the one that surprised me most the first time I saw it in a thin patient: sleep apnea. Most people assume that's a large person's problem. It isn't only. When you gain visceral fat, some of it deposits in places you'd never guess, including your tongue and the tissues around your airway. When you lie down and fall asleep and everything relaxes, that heavier tissue can collapse the airway. Which is why a slim person can suddenly start snoring, stop breathing briefly through the night, and wake up exhausted for reasons no one can explain. It's a two-way street, too. Poor sleep drives more visceral fat, and more visceral fat wrecks sleep. That was the second thing hiding in my patient. Loud new snoring. Her husband had started sleeping in another room to escape. All right, that's the problem, and it's serious. Now let's talk about what you do about it, because this is the part that actually matters. And the good news is real. But first, before any advice, you need to know if this even applies to you. And you can find out tonight for free with a tape measure. Forget the scale for a second. Wrap a tape measure around your bare waist, roughly at the level of your belly button. Don't suck in, just breathe normally. Now here's the rule that beats BMI for this. Your waist should be less than half your height. If you're 5'6", that's 66 inches, so you want your waist under 33 inches. 5'10", 70 inches, keep it under 35. If your waist is creeping past half your height, that's your signal that visceral fat is accumulating, no matter what the scale says. Write the number down. That's your baseline. That one measurement tells you more about your metabolic risk than your weight does. Now, what actually moves it? And here, I have to be honest with you in a way the internet usually isn't, because there's a lot of hype about magic fat-burning foods, and I want to rank these for you by how much they truly matter. Biggest lever first. The single most powerful tool against visceral fat is your muscle. Think of your muscles as a sponge for blood sugar. When you use them, when you contract them, they soak glucose out of your bloodstream and burn it, instead of leaving it to get stored as fat around your organs. This is why the highest return habit isn't a food at all. It's two things. First, keep or build muscle with some form of resistance work. And this does not mean a gym. It can be getting up out of a chair 10 times, carrying your own groceries, resistance bands, wall push-ups. Muscle is the metabolic engine that stays lit even at rest. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, especially if you're older, that it's too late, that you can't build muscle at your age. I need you to hear this clearly, because it's one of the most important and most underbelieved facts in medicine. That is not true. Studies have put people in their 70s, 80s, even frail nursing home residents on simple resistance training, and they got measurably stronger and rebuilt muscle. Your body does not lose the ability to respond to being asked to work. It never fully loses it. So if a voice in your head just said, "Not me, I'm too old," that voice is wrong, and it's costing you the single best tool you have. Start where you are. 10 sit-to-stands from a kitchen chair is a real workout if it's 10 more than you did yesterday. Second, walk after your meals. 10 minutes of easy walking after you eat blunts the blood sugar spike better than almost anything I can prescribe, which means less of that meal gets shuttled into visceral storage. In a car-dependent country, that can be laps around the yard, walking the dog, or in bad weather, walking the moor, which is a genuine institution for a reason. That's the biggest lever. Second biggest, and people always want to skip it, is sleep. When you're short on sleep, your body runs high on the stress hormone cortisol, and cortisol tells your body to park fat in exactly the worst place, deep in the abdomen. Short sleepers carry more visceral fat, full stop. And if you've got that hidden apnea we talked about, fixing it can change everything downstream. So if you snore loudly, wake up unrefreshed, or your partner has noticed you stop breathing, that's worth a conversation with your doctor about a sleep study. That's not a minor tip. For some people, it's the whole game. Third is the overall quality of what you eat. More plants and fiber and protein, less ultra-processed food and sugary drinks, which shrinks the fat depot over time. And only then, fourth, at the bottom of the ranking, come the things the videos always lead with. The teas, the cold exposure, the fat-burning tricks. They're real, but they're small, and I'd be doing you a disservice to let you think they replace the first three. Let me still give them to you honestly, because they do help at the margins. Not all your fat is the enemy. There's a type that works for you called brown fat. White, visceral fat stores. Brown fat burns. It burns fuel to make heat, like a pilot light left on inside you. Why brown? Because it's packed with mitochondria, your cellular power plants, and those are full of iron. Iron rusts brown. That's the whole reason for the color. Flip that pilot light on, and it quietly burns calories as warmth. So what flips the switch? Cold is one. A cold shower or a chilly room triggers a shock hormone that wakes up brown fat through a receptor called beta-3. But here's the honest caveat, and I have to say it as an ER doctor. The human evidence for cold plunges melting real fat is thin, and a hard plunge is a genuine jolt to the heart. If you have heart disease or high blood pressure, do not jump into ice water because a video told you to. Talk to your doctor first. For everyone else, 30 seconds of cool water at the end of a normal shower is plenty, and it's safe. Green tea is the other switch, and this one actually has human trials behind it. In one, people sipping green tea through the day lost a couple of pounds and shaved almost an inch off their waist in 8 weeks. Their blood pressure and blood sugar improved, too. In another, from a university in Tehran, 63 overweight adults with type 2 diabetes drank 4 cups a day for 2 months. They lost around 3 pounds and nearly 2 inches off the waist. But look hard at those numbers. A couple of pounds, an inch or two. That's real and worth having. It is not the main event. It's a helper riding on top of the muscle, The walking and the sleep, never a replacement for them.
Like tea? Great. Matcha gives you more because you drink the whole ground leaf, and oolong and fermented pu'er work too. Drink it because it nudges things in the right direction, and it's a pleasant, calorie-free habit. Don't drink it thinking it's doing the heavy lifting. It isn't. You are. Now, this matters differently depending on who you are, so let me sort it out. If you're in your 40s or 50s and slim, but your waist is creeping past half your height, this is your early warning. And the muscle and walking habit now will save you a decade of trouble. If you're in your 60s or 70s, there's an added reason this matters, and it's not vanity. Muscle is what keeps you independent, out of a walker, up your own stairs, able to carry your own groceries and get up off the floor if you go down. At that stage, protecting muscle while trimming visceral fat isn't about looks at all. It's about staying in your own home. One more practical thing, because the tape measure tells you your risk, but not the full picture. And this is where your doctor comes in. At your next visit, ask for 4 numbers and write them down. Your fasting blood sugar and your A1C, which tell you how your body is handling sugar. Your ALT, a liver enzyme that can flag fatty liver, and a standard lipid panel. If you're on Medicare, your annual wellness visit costs you nothing, and most people never use it. Those numbers, plus your waist measurement, give you and your doctor a real map instead of a guess. You don't need a new appointment for this. You need one sentence at the one you already have. Let me bring this together, because I don't want you to leave with fear. I want you to leave with a plan. If you remember one thing, remember this. The scale can lie to you. Your waist doesn't. Where your fat sits matters more than what you weigh. And the fat that matters most is the hidden kind wrapped around your organs, the kind that leaks inflammation and feeds fatty liver, sleep apnea, diabetes, and cancer. The reassuring truth underneath all of it, that fat is the most responsive fat you have. It comes off first when you move. So, here's your one small step tonight. Take a tape measure, measure your waist, and check it against half your height. Write down both numbers. If your waist is over the line, you don't need to panic and you don't need to overhaul your life this weekend. You need one habit. A 10-minute walk after your biggest meal starting tomorrow. That single move, repeated, does more for the dangerous fat than any tea on earth. And if you've got someone in your life who's slim and sure they're fine, but snores like a freight train and never feels rested, this is the video to send them. The thin ones are exactly the people this hides in. You're not looking for perfection here. You're looking for one number and one walk. Start there.